So in the previous item, we saw a sample of CSS and how to use it. It was done all within the IDE environment of CodePen. In the real world, in our case, in our GitHub pages, which I need to open, I'll get to my GitHub account, username.github.io, open up my repository, and we're going to be using an external CSS style sheet. So very much like we did in CodePen, we could, that small code that we did before with the P and the H1 and any similar CSS, we're going to be using in another page in our CSS. Just like we have index.html, we're going to have another page that we will call styles.css or mystyles.css or something like that, as long as it has a .css extension at the end. So this is a simple and fairly quick exercise. We're going to be using the external style sheet to make some formatting changes to the page. Let's get the page in question open, and we just opened it in the previous exercise to insert a banner, this index.html. At the very top, I'm going to edit first. Inside of the head tag, which in my case it starts on line 3, we have metadata, including who the author is and what's it about and the description. We're going to be adding a link. So I pressed enter at the very end of the line 8 so that I have space to then get the CSS added. I have a link in resources with more information how to add CSS. This takes me to W3 Schools. I like W3 Schools because it covers a lot of the coding, and it has sample code that I can copy. All external CSS style sheets are loaded up the same way. We add a link that relates to a style sheet, and then depending on what we're going to call it, that's going to be the code. I'm going to highlight this link. You could also type it if you want, but I'm going to copy it, take it back to my page, and in the space that I added, I'm going to press Ctrl V as in Victor to paste. I now have a link that is relating this HTML to a style sheet that will be called mystyle.css. I like the name, so I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to keep it as that. I have my banner, I have my text, etc. So mystyle.css makes sense. Now I'm going to copy just the name, mystyle.css. Right click and copy. Control C is your shortcut. And I'm going to commit the changes that I just made. So basically now the next time that this page loads, it's going to be looking for a file called CSS. If it doesn't find it, that's fine. It'll just ignore it. And we'll see the page just the way we have been before. I'll open it up here. It's going to be imed1416.github.io, and the page looks the same. I don't know if it's already got the code or not. If I view the page source, it's not there yet, but it will be there in a minute or two. In the meantime, though, I need to get busy making the file itself. So that's why I copied the name. I'm going to create the file by adding the file, add file, create new file, and I'll paste it here. CSS, actually it's mystyle.css, and it's blank for now. I will commit the new file, and that way it'll be in the system already, waiting for us, waiting for the code. One thing that we can do, you could either open up MyStyle. I'll open it up in a new tab so that I have a separate access to it. You can open it in the same tab, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to click on the pencil to edit the file. The reason why I opened it in a separate file was because in order to demonstrate this to you, I'm going to open up the index.html. I'm not going to make any more changes to this index file. Everything that will happen as far as changes are concerned will happen in the CSS, but I needed to get a hold of this text. I'm going to copy the tags. I'm going to copy the code for the page. I selected all the text and I will copy. And I'm going to open up in a new, well, rather than a new tab, I'm going to open up a new window, pressing Control N, and going to CodePen like I did before for the sample. And then that way I can tell you more about what this process is about if I dump the HTML in that window, pressing Control V as in Victor to paste. I won't see the file, or rather the image that we created, because it's not directly connected to CodePen. However, because we have alternative text, I can see that where it goes and what the alternative text is describing the image. Francisco Rodriguez website portfolio. I'm going to minimize the JavaScript because we're not using it, and I will just click on CSS. I will not be making any changes to the HTML. Everything is going to happen in CSS. That being said, let's see what the assignment says. The assignment says we're going to make a style sheet file, which we did. I created it, and it's called mystyles.css. It could be capitalized. It doesn't have to be, as long as it ends in .css. And we're going to add a link tag to the head section, which we've already done. Now we're going to add some CSS to center the logo in the header and the text in your footer. What does that mean? Right now, this is the way the page looks. It's all to the left, right? And our tiny text below here is all to the left as well. So we want to center this logo in the middle of the page. We want everything else to be the same way, except for the footer, which also needs to be centered. How do we go about that? Well, I can tell you that if I'm going to resize this, do some creative resizing. Hopefully you can switch between pages or just have one open. In order to demonstrate this, I'm going to try to keep them both open. They're going to be slightly different sizes so that I can navigate them a little bit better, a little bit easier. Okay, so here's my page. It doesn't look the same exactly as it does in the real page, but it's pretty close to it. I know then that in my HTML, I want to change the header and I want to change the footer. One thing about this is that although I have used an image tag and I've used a P tag at the bottom for this code, I've also used semantic elements. I've used the header and I've used the footer, and just like regular elements, I can use these elements names to make changes. Let's say, like I did in the example, that I wanted to change all paragraphs. The CSS then would start with the letter P, and then curly brace, press enter for spacing here. And if I wanted to change all the paragraphs in the page, let's say I want to say color is going to be red, it happens immediately, just like it did in the sample. I'll put a semicolon there at the end, just saying this is the end of the text. Now, I don't want to change everything. In the directions, we want to center the bottom text. The center tag, you can look it up in the links that I provided. CSS layout. If you click on that, you'll see that this is going to be for alignment. And in order to align text and align elements, we use the tags text, align, center. So I'll copy this. I could also type it. And then take it to my CodePen. And right after the color changing to red, I'll press Control V to paste and say, okay, well, center the text. However, because we're centering all paragraphs have changed to be centered. We want only the text in the footer to be centered. What then needs to happen, I'll cut this again, just to get it out of the way, Control X to cut. I will add a new element here to say that the footer, open up curly braces, will then align in the center. Notice how the paragraphs are all red, but only the footer is aligned in the center. what tells me is that then there must be, and there is, a better way to make changes in CSS that don't necessarily affect everything, just the parts that we want. So then I know that in the end I don't want this text to be red. It's not really my style. So I'm just going to get rid of that. I'll leave the P there for now. But let's say then that I want the header, which contains the image. In the HTML, I can see that I do have the header, and then there's an image that points to my banner.jpg. It gives it specific size, and then it closes. So if I did that for the footer, I can then add header, open curly braces, and use the same code. Text align is center. Text hyphen align is center, semicolon to end the line. Although I can't see the image, the alternative text tells me that it will be centered, and whatever's inside of it will be centered as well. The paragraph and the rest of the site will not be centered, only that in the footer, only that in the header. Also, if we wanted to change everything, there is another tag that's being used in the page, and that is one that covers everything, and that is the body tag. We have right here where the page begins, body. If I were to add a body element down here, I'll say body colon, or rather body curly braces, and then I can say color is gray, semicolon. Then everything in the page, this could be a header, this could be a footer, this could be anything, that as long as it's inside of the body tags, it will turn to gray. Once again, that's not something that I necessarily want for the whole body, but maybe that's something that I want to use just for the footer. I'm going to cut that color gray and add it to the footer CSS. Now my footer is centered and it's gray. Calls today for a free consultation, etc. Well, this is a fictional site created for a class at El Centro College, and well, the instructions tell us that we need to center the footer and we need to center the header. At this point, you would be done with that. I wanted this exercise to be another small step in you understanding CSS. When we get to the next big project, we're going to be making additional CSS changes that will also affect the way that images are presented, the way that text is sorted, the way that colors appear. Now, in CodePen, everything that I did in the CSS, I can click inside here, press Control A to select all. If you're in a Mac, that would be Command A. Control C to copy, and come back to my GitHub, and inside of the CSS, mystyle.css file that I created, I'm going to press Control V to paste, V as in Victor. And I'm going to keep, even though some of these are empty, I might have to change them later, so I'll just leave the code there. It doesn't affect it. I'll scroll down to commit the changes. Like I said, there will be no changes to the HTML. Everything that we did, we changed in CSS. So now that the page, or rather the code, excuse me, has been committed, I can go back to my repository and see that everything is saved. My style.css is there. It was saved a few seconds ago. My banner is still there, and the index file, which is the what we're applying all these changes to, is still there. I can hope then that if I go to the tab with the page open and hit reload, that eventually the code will be updated and I can open it. I'm going to wait another few seconds, and hopefully it won't be more than a minute. Let's reload. Nothing there yet. Let me view the page source. So it's looking for mystyle.css. If I click on that, this is still blank. It's still waiting to load. Oh, there it is. So maybe now then I can reload the page and it will apply the the styling, and it did. So now my logo is centered, my footer is centered, and I have different types of well, actually I have the rest of the text inside of the page just fine. One thing that you could do, this is sort of a bonus thing for you to know, Google Fonts. When I click on Google Fonts, and it takes me to the Google Fonts page, where they have a whole bunch, a variety of styles that you can use. Something that we can change, and we did in the samples before, we changed it from Arial to Times New Roman, that is from a serif to a sans serif, and we can also load it up to specialty fonts. And there's hundreds, probably lots and lots, more than I care to scroll and look, something for you to maybe look at. I know that there's a font that we like to use in the tech department. I'll search for Roboto, and I get the families that are available. Roboto normal, and then there's a condensed one. We'll dismiss that. There's a slab, which is sort of it's something that you can use for a header. Mono is equally spaced, mostly for code. Let me see about looking at the Roboto itself and seeing what it tells me when I click on it. It should give me the family of fonts that are available. And sure enough, there they are. If I look at the slab, this is almost, actually it's a serif font, see how it's got the little feet? Well, I'm just going to stick to the simple one, Roboto here, and it gives me the styles that are available to use. And if I wanted to use Roboto in my page, there's multiple ways, but the easy way to do this, I'll just get one that is readable. I think the regular 400 is fairly readable. I'll click on select this style, and it gives me a couple of things. It gives me a link, and then it gives me a CSS rule. So this link would go on the head. If I highlight this and copy it, right click copy, I can take it to my page in the index HTML, edit this, and then tell it right after or right before, as long as it's in the head, to paste. Control V as in Victor, and now I have a second link. I have one link that links to my style sheet, and then this second link will link to Google Fonts. I will commit the changes, go back to the Roboto page. The second thing it tells me is that there's CSS rules to specify families. So like we had before, we could choose Arial, or we could choose Times New Roman, other samples that we looked at. I'm going to highlight that, copy it, go back to my page, but rather than the index, since that is a CSS rule, I'm going to open up my style.css, and since I did say at one point that I could change all paragraphs to be one style, I'm going to go into the paragraph that I left behind, press Ctrl V as in Victor to paste. I didn't copy the F as in font family there. So now the paragraph will load up the font family Roboto, that's a sans serif if it doesn't find it, and that will affect all the paragraphs in the page, including everything in the header, everything in the footer. I will then commit the changes. I will navigate back to my file, so just see all my files are here. I just changed the mystyle.css. I previously changed the index, and I see that it's still there, right? The new link, pre-connect, great. Just wasting time, or burning time rather. See if I go back to the page and reload, how long it's going to take. I'm going to pause for just a few seconds and come back. And okay, I was away for about 30 seconds. Let's reload again. Nothing yet. Let me right click and view the page source. Not that this helps, but at least it tells me if anything's happening. See how some of the text here is underlined. These are direct links, so if I click on mystyle.css, I can click to see what the status is of the CSS. Although the HTML has changed, the CSS has not changed yet. I'll reload that, and I see that my Roboto family is there now. I can close this, I can close the other page, I can reload my page and see how the family changed to something else. This is the Roboto font. You can use a more exciting font if you want. Later on in the following lessons, we'll be also moving text to be not necessarily centered, but definitely away from the margins on the right and the left, and how to do just one word. This is making changes all across the page or all across certain elements like the footer and the header. I'll show you how to make just the word free be special. To turn into this assignment, same as the last time, your home page, you can copy that, go back to the assignment itself, click on 7.2, find the area where you can write a submission, and press Ctrl V. You can remove formatting or keep it as just text, and submit this for a grade. I'll see you in the next assignment. Have a good day.